It was only a matter of time. I said this in my video yesterday that what they're going to do is associate Philip Defranco with the alt-right, and then the activists would move in. In my opinion, based on the, working with the writer to a small extent and knowing him personally, the conversations we've had, I believe there is malicious intent. I'm not saying he's trolling as much as it's evil. I'm saying he knows what he's doing. He knows that he's omitting certain people and including certain people and causing harm to the reputation of Philip Defranco. He doesn't care. He's misframing the argument. And in fact, the funniest thing about his story on Phil and others is that his story debunks itself. But here's the important bit. Philip Defranco tweeted this. A buddy on the East Coast just sent this to me. They put the making of a YouTube radical collage on the front page of the Sunday edition of the New York Times. Now it appears that I'm also a part of a stew of emotional content. I'm going to ditch the internet today. See you Monday. I kid you not. The New York Times ran a front page story about one guy and the YouTube videos he watched. Think about how psychotic that is. Why would they do this? Why? Interestingly, the story is about one guy who watched YouTube videos, and the actual story is that a guy watched YouTube, was a conservative. He said he rejected the far-right viewpoints and then watched the intellectual dark web like Dave Rubin. Then he watched left-wing content and denounces the alt-right. How is that a story about radicalization? The making of a YouTube radical. How the site's algorithm played into the hands of the far-right. But you literally wrote a story about how the guy rejected the alt-right and never believed their opinions. Weird. Why would Kevin Roose of the New York Times frame a story one way and debunk the story in the actual article? Could it be that most people don't read to the very end? More than half of people will read the headline, then half of the remaining will read halfway through, and very few will finish it. Because when you finish it, he became a liberal, made a video denouncing the alt-right. Why would you do this? Why would you publish a front page story about one guy watching YouTube who didn't even hold rather extreme views? Really weird, isn't it? Really, really weird. So I don't have the tab pulled up, but I will say, if you want to support me, timcast.com/donate. With the attacks on YouTube, it's really important that I promote. You can support me through timcast.com/donate in case I get demonetized or something. Just like, comment, share, and subscribe, though. It's the engagement really helps. But here's the point. The point I want to make. Yesterday in my video, I said, activists will take this and they will run full speed. They already did. I'm not kidding. Welcome to Philip Defranco's Wikipedia talk section. For those that aren't familiar, the talk section is where people argue whether or not something should be included in the article. Shortly after my video was published, we saw this section appear on Wikipedia. I feel that it would be in the best interest of the public to have Mr. Defranco listed as having ties to the alt-right and, yes, some bad people I'm not going to say, sphere of influence on YouTube. What this would effectively do is ensure that anyone who Googles his name will take his words with a grain of salt, as opposed to be subtly brainwashed by extremist groups that are associated with his channel and persona. Someone responded, no source, although it looks like a smear campaign is in the works, I will revert any edits from your IP address. Someone then said, if the New York Times said air didn't exist, would you believe it? And finally, I guess this is what we're talking about, and a link to the tweet from Philip Defranco. When I first saw this, I said, troll, obvious troll. Somebody was following the news throughout the day because a lot of people were talking about it, and then put this in here as a troll or an acceleration. Like, okay, let's just go for it. No, I do not believe, or I should say, I did not believe this was included in Philip's talk page, trying to seed the information by an actual protester or activist or anything like that. No, I think it's a troll. Until I saw this. Welcome to GamerGhazi. There are various subreddits and communities I track for various news stories, one of which is GamerGhazi, with self-identified SJW members. That's what they call themselves. GamerGhazi is a social justice subreddit. Right now, I believe, let me open a new tab just to be sure. I believe the top comment, the top post right now, so concerning white fragility is a pinned post, you can see the pin, and the highest upvoted post right now on the social justice subreddit. Philip Defranco upset at the NYT that the New York Times correctly identified him as a major player in the alt-right radicalization pipeline. Unironically, I said this was going to happen. Okay, you look at the Wikipedia, and again, the first thing I thought was, I'm not buying it. I did not think the activists would come for him immediately after the story was posted. I assumed it would be slowly over time, them slowly bringing about insinuations that he is associated with these groups, and that this was probably a troll just thinking it's funny. Someone did include the source of the New York Times, so the conversation at least has started. And someone said it looks like a smear campaign is in the works. And it is. Look at this. Someone said the article doesn't even call Phil an alt-righter, just that he was in Kane's watch history. Someone needs to learn all the facts and observe both sides before making a judgment call. I saw his outrage tweet. Basically, there's some comments in here saying, well, he's just an enlightened centrist. But some people, this person, okay, the post came from a moderator. They say new mod, same great oppression. The user is, who's the user? Calorie? And, okay, so Calorie doesn't look like a mod. Wait, maybe I want to make sure they are or aren't a moderator. So the moderator is, okay, they're not a moderator. That's important because I didn't know if that meant they were actually a moderator. Maybe they are, and I'm getting it wrong. But the point is, this is an unironic thread talking about how Philip DeFranco plays both sides, defending the right wing. So here's what the individual says. He also, they're quoting somebody. He also both sides a lot of S that makes the aggressor and the target seem morally equivalent, but only when the aggressor is left and the victim is right. When it's reverse, he doesn't both sides it at all. He downplays what the right did and plays up how the left deserved it. This person said, DeFranco serves as the centrist gateway drug to misogyny and bigotry. He pretends to be left-wing, but somehow all his coverage manages to make the right look somewhat good and victimized, and the left looks somewhat bad and unreasonable. And here and there sprinkles in misogyny and anti-feminist, anti-SJW mini-rants. The whole purpose is just to get you used to the ideas, to ease you into the right, and YouTube will take care of the rest by recommending more and more right-wing stuff as you watch him. They go on to say that he's an open libertarian in this thread. Philip DeFranco has interviewed Gary Johnson in the past. He has said he was a libertarian in the past, and that is far right by many mainstream political assumptions or perspectives. So look, does it matter that there are 77 comments talking about how Philip DeFranco is part of the pipeline? Yes, but I don't want to act like it's the end of the world. Let me explain to you the significance of this. In order to smear someone as alt-right, they have to plant seeds. I do not believe there's an overt conspiracy. I believe it's a bunch of people waiting at a starting line, and they're waiting for someone to do something so they can jump forward. I do not believe Kevin Roose is in cahoots with anybody or there's any kind of conspiracy. Kevin Roose, the writer of the original article, probably just saw this as an opportunity to get clicks. It's a fascinating, scary story that people are getting radicalized, but his story debunked itself. At the end of the story, the guy never went far right and denounced them by watching YouTube videos. But he makes this big thread about how he had to understand how they're doing this and how they're playing into the far-right strategy and making it go mainstream. All lies. Not true. Data proves not true. I've talked about it a million times. I won't get in anymore, but it's not true. This guy clearly is just latching on to some clickbait nonsense. And I will stress, the very simple reason why what I'm saying is very likely to be true. Why would the New York Times write a story about one guy who watched YouTube? It is an anecdote. There is no data, and the story debunks itself. It makes no sense. It's absurd nonsense. The New York Times could publish a story about an expose on border crossing and ICE, something that actually matters. Really weird, Kevin. Really weird. It's an anecdote about one individual. If that's the best the front page of the New York Times can pull off in terms of this story, you know it's bunk. They didn't look at any research. They didn't look at any data. They pulled up one random guy and said, see, look at this guy. He watched these channels. Oh, wait, he became a liberal? Debunking your own narrative, but publishing as if it proves your narrative? If you do this story for months, I've been working on a story for a few months, and that's the best you can do, you've debunked yourself. Congratulations. I won't be surprised. Hank Green saying it's a good article too. What are you talking about, Hank? Why would a front page story about one guy on YouTube be a good article? Thankfully, Casey Neistat comes in with it's badly done. Very confusing, little consideration for how the association of being in that collage would be interpreted, especially considering the headline directly beneath the photos. And I said it's maliciously framed, in my opinion. It talks about how the YouTubers like Natalie are a pipeline away from radicalization, and this person ultimately came to denounce the alt-right. It's just smearing YouTube for no reason. Here's what's going to happen. This is part of the process where these dominoes fall over, but activists know full well the power in slowly playing this game. Philip Defranco pushes back. Doesn't matter. You can now say, without fear of libel, Philip Defranco is associated with the far right. Because what does that really mean? You'll then see his Wikipedia, because they're already beginning the arguments within the same day. Surprised the hell out of me about whether or not he should or shouldn't be. Of course, they're taking the negative, he shouldn't be, but someone will eventually chime in, maybe, I'm not saying it definitely will happen, and they'll say something like, well, I think the premise is silly, we should talk about the pipeline and how Philip Defranco does, get recommendations in YouTube, etc. The New York Times has written about it. It's newsworthy, they'll say. And then all of a sudden something will appear on Philip's page saying, Philip Defranco, in a recent controversy, Philip Defranco was associated with alt-right YouTubers, though he denied it and was outraged. A month or 2 months later, a story will be written. This is called cytogenesis. It was something that was written in a comic by XKCD, if you're familiar, where they said, once it appears on Wikipedia, some other journalist will take it and then twist it like a game of telephone. So first, they'll say Philip Defranco was recently associated with the alt-right in a New York Times article triggering outrage from many commentators. Next, you'll see a Gizmodo article. Philip Defranco, comma, who was recently associated with the alt-right, comma. Then you'll see another article later. Philip Defranco, comma, an associate of the alt-right. Then eventually you'll say Philip Defranco, who is routinely criticized as being alt-right. And there you have it. Now, some people will call him alt-right, like they're doing already. And sure enough, that gives ground to the New York Times, to any other outlet to say, Philip Defranco, comma, an alt-right YouTuber. Then you look at the actual definition of what alt-right is. White nationalist. Doesn't matter. It's an opinion. And the New York Times can now say, listen, there were a ton of stories referencing him in this way. Okay. It's we didn't make it up. Wikipedia was talking about it. Our journalists saw this, followed the sources. There were a ton of news articles calling him alt-right or associating with it. If he can deny it all he wants. And that's how the game is played. So there you go, Phil. Whether you're happy, angry, whatever, they're now starting the argument on your Wikipedia page. They're saying it's a smear campaign, sure. But does that mean you believe the New York Times is part of a conspiracy to smear Philip Defranco? That's crazy. This can't be true. Whoever wrote this is clearly a conspiracy theorist because the New York Times is not engaging in a smear campaign. Can't you bigots understand that Philip Defranco was correctly identified as being a major player in the alt-right radicalization pipeline? Welcome to the new future, Phil. You are now officially associated with the alt-right by these people. Of course, we sane people, no, that's not true. You have to choose what videos you watch. I'm not going to prattle too much. I will leave the story there because I've talked a lot about this, but there you go. Phil Defranco, alt-right. I will see you in the next segment coming up shortly.